When we discuss about plant medicines, these are substances that are not designed for entertainment.
Hey friends, today's guests have guided over 1,500 people through plant medicine retreats. These are people from NFL athletes to burnt out founders, and they're here today on the Nina's Notes podcast to explain why ancient ceremonies might be the most cutting edge tool in modern healing. So Danny and Sarah, welcome to the Nina's Notes podcast.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Yeah, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
We've really enjoyed listening to your podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to learn more about Behold and what you guys are doing. But I want to start from the beginning because, Danny, you started your career in energy innovation. Sarah, you come from finance and global volunteerism. What led you to leap from those careers into leading plant medicine retreats? Like, was it a pivotal moment in your life? Was it an experience of your own? Tell me the story.
Sure, I'll start on my side. For me, it was, I found myself as an entrepreneur, just doing startup businesses in all areas. And my last venture was specifically in agrofuels. And I was involved that for a while. It basically came to the medicine as a skeptical human being. I have a hard problem reading books because I have to question the author before I can really dive into that information. And for me, it came after a 20-year marriage that was ending. And of course, I discovered depression for the first time in my life. I had no empathy or even patience with anybody that was going through depression. I had no understanding of it until it finally came knocking on my door. And that ultimately opened up the path for me to really just kind of discover myself after coming out of that depression and stepped right into plant medicines. And that really was a very key aspect of change in my life. It's a completely different human back then than I was. And I've been on this path for about 16 years already. Yeah. So, and really living the life of the path and enjoying the process that has taken me in the evolution to be of service to others, which is really the main purpose in my life right now.
And Sarah, what about you? What led you to start Behold or start facilitating ceremonies?
Yeah, so plant medicine came into my life long before I entered finance. So I started very young and it really bookended my career in finance. And so I started even before college. And because of the beautiful direction, heartfelt direction of my family, which from their concern with raising 4 daughters, they raised us to be very independent, have multiple options. And so I, not for that reason, quit my endeavors in psychedelics, but I started focusing on career. I went into finance. There was also that lesson, which is anything doesn't lead to an independent career is a great hobby. So for a decade, I focused on finance. I focused on expanding that career. And then towards the last few years of living in Southern California, working very hard, I'm really out of balance. I started a practice again. And so when I first started, I was more interested in chasing transcendental experiences. And then as I came back to it in my later financial career, it was more about self-inquiry, asking the questions like Danny had done as well. And then now it has also shifted into helping others. I still love the transcendental experiences. I still ask all the questions, and not in such a skeptical way. I ask things that make sense and things that don't make sense and say, is that true? Are my thoughts really accurate? And where do they come from? And are they really important? And so now I have shifted more into be in service to others, and so that we can answer those big questions of life. Who are we? What world challenges can we solve and in community and with each other? So that's how I came back to plant medicine and psychedelics.
So let's start with the basics around plant medicine. For some of my listeners, they may be new to this. I think we all are in circles where this is common vocabulary, but you work with the typical plant medicines, which include ayahuasca, psilocybin, Bufo, 5-MeO-DMT. For someone who has genuinely never heard the names of these, what are they and how are they fundamentally different from other types of recreational drugs?
Yeah. So I think it's important to understand the concept of what entheogenic plant medicines is. Entheogens is a combination of a Greek word that means one with God. And so when we discuss about plant medicines, these are substances that are not designed for entertainment. It's an aspect to go deep within ourselves. Some people will come to our retreats and realize it's not recreational at all. It's actually some work that needs to be taken place when it comes to that. There's also that conception about, is it drugs or is it medicine? And then these medicines are designed to help you overcome many aspects of your life. So they're not designed like drugs to hook you and really just keep you trapped into that. So there's a significant difference. So these are all plant teachers. It's really the only thing that I trust is anything that comes from an organic source and allows us to work through the intelligence, the aspects of the wisdom that comes through these different plants. And each one is a different plant teacher. They all provide all of the different messages and everything that they can provide for that individual. So those are some of the medicines that we work with. We also work with some other ones that are more for experiential individuals that have, more of a path on this.
Will you
Okay.
give just a brief about ayahuasca, bufo, psilocybin?
On the ayahuasca side, it's probably one of the most therapeutic medicines you're going to find. It's the one that really allows you to kind of dive and work within all of your processes, both on the emotional side of things, on the psyche, and it allows you to process as you're several hours within that experience. A Bufo experience is a 5-MeO DMT molecule. It's an experience that it's described as when you're ready to die, be reborn and meet your creator. That's a 5-MeO DMT. And of course that is inhaled and smoked, and it's a 15-minute process that takes to a complete ego dissolution and ego death. Typically the most fearful part of that journey is that crossover moment from, dissolving the ego or the construct of your reality that you think it is, and then moving into a realm that is unknown. So it's a very what we call a peak experience. And then of course psilocybin, which is a beautiful teacher in all of its essence, do ceremonies that work with what's called ayahuasca. And we'll do 3 ceremonies, one which allows us to explore different aspects of the senses. But our deep dive, the reason why most people come to our retreats is because then we do the ayahuasca combination and allows us to have the MOA inhibitors in place and then receive the medicine of the psilocybin that allows for then a really true heroic deep dive into the journey that allows for that experience. So those are a couple of the 3 most practical medicines that we work with, aside from others as well.
Which other medicines do you work with?
Yeah, so we work with the 5-MeO compound aspect. We know that everyone's familiar already with the Bufo alfarius, that's the toad from the Sonora Desert. And then we work with yopo. Yopo is a snuff, an Amazonian snuff, and it's the one medicine that allows us as facilitators to be able to actually turn on and turn off a psychedelic experience. So far, there's no other plant medicines that I'm aware of that allows us to do that. The medicine is contained within the actual nostrils, and then it allows to process, and it's a peak experience of a 5-MeO DMT, similar to the Bufo, but rather than just 15 minutes of that peak experience, it's a couple of hours worth of that experience. So it's quite strong and profound. And then there's other ones that we're still in study and looking that are still very deep in the jungle yet. And we're still in that study mode with those particular medicines and working with the indigenous tribes and ensure that we have really deep understanding of this medicine before we can bring it out to the general public.
Something that comes up a lot in these peak experiences, like you mentioned with Bufo, 5-MeO DMT, is this ego dissolution, which can be very frightening for somebody who has never experienced a very large psychedelic journey like this. So what does it feel like for those who have never experienced it? How would you describe it? How does somebody come out afterwards feeling? And how do you then integrate that experience going forward?
Well, that first part of that question is a tough one. I'll let Sarah answer that.
Sure. So I think the phrase ego death can sound scary, can sound dramatic. It is very strong. With soft language, it really refers to the temporary softening of the sense of a fixed, separate self. So I am Sarah, and I have life experiences, and I feel very separate from Danny. I know him, so I feel closer than a stranger. But each of us are our own separate beings. I'm separate from the ocean and the sun and the air that I breathe. And so an ego death could start dissolving that feeling of separation, that we really are connected. And so I have personal experiences with ayahuasca, which I would just define more as what feels like a dissolvement of ego in a spacious time. And that feels very beautiful. It's slow. I'm conscious. I'm thoughtful. I'm seeing the things that I'm letting go of. In Bufo, it's very strong and fast and powerful. And so that is where somebody might use the word such as ego death. That's where we teach tools such as surrendering so that it can feel more comfortable. It is fast, and so that's a benefit to it. But ego death can happen quickly, and then you're in a space of unity. Bufo is frequently described as ineffable, so it's hard to describe much more than that, and it's different for different people. Ayahuasca allows the time for that ego disillusionment to be very present, and for me, very beautiful. Bufo, it's quick and fast, uncomfortable, and then you're there. Yeah, and some of the benefits to it. So somebody may say, okay, I did that. I had this conscious creator or creator consciousness, but what are the benefits for us afterwards? I can't function feeling like I am you and you are me at all times. And so what are the benefits of this ego disillusionment? Some people don't like the word at all anymore, ego death, but the realization that we are not limited to the narratives that we've been carrying. And so somebody that might say, this is just who I am my trauma. So taking off those stories, even temporarily, we can start looking at them in a new perspective, and we can start healing them. We can have the experience of being in our highest self and knowing what that looks like. And then ayahuasca, these plant medicines, they kind of take out anything that isn't in alignment with that. And so that can be uncomfortable, and it's also incredibly powerful and beautiful.
You asked about integration a little bit on that one as well, of course. And as you enter into an altered state of consciousness, it's where the brain is its most malleable state it could find itself. So certainly the days and weeks post an experience like this, even a peak experience like this, would then allow for yourself to be in the right positioning to really just create that self awareness and reality of yourself, and then of course redesign your life and invent yourself again, as they say, with the level of understanding that you have with these plant medicines. I always say that there's three things that ayahuasca gives you, which is awareness, awareness, awareness.
So is everybody ready for that? And how do you do an evaluation or a vetting process before you bring people into Behold or into your ceremonies to make sure that they've not just done the right preparations to prepare for an ayahuasca ceremony, but to actually like mentally be in the right place to go through a peak experience like this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, from both of us. Yeah. Experiences can really be destabilizing if you're unprepared, or especially psychologically vulnerable. And so I'm so proud of our onboarding process, our medical team, and the preparation. Our guest services go through the preparation from body, mind, and spirit, and then integration. And so when people are looking on where to go for these experiences, there should be a process. If somebody's just like, yeah, come on in, that would be a pink flag or maybe even a red flag to ask a lot more questions. And so we definitely go through these processes, preparation and integration.
The readiness aspect is key for us, and not only for the integrity of the individual, but also acts very importantly for the group, right? So it's really key for that. And that's why our guardians and gatekeepers are there. This is an invite-only aspect of our attending our retreats, and we carefully curate the individuals that are able to come in, because we only do small groups, which allows for very much surgical type of work to take place within these spaces, and of course, very mindful care, and create a container that is what residents provide, a container of a space to allow for the individuals to fall in that full trust and create a family setting where people can feel comfortable and being in the vulnerable positions that sometimes this will allow. So I think for us, it's the key element of, and probably the most important aspect of our success is making sure that we are properly onboarding individuals and their readiness capability for this.
What size groups do you take through your ceremonies?
It's groups of 10 is the people that we manage, and it'll up or down on that one, but it's on average size is about 8 to 10 people that we allow and to come in. Not everyone gets invited, so there's different processes for people that we may discover that their readiness level isn't there yet. So we'll take them through different processes, or such as coaching and preparation, and get them in the right state, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, to be able to come to one of our retreats.
So how does the group setting look to someone who hasn't been in one of these settings before? And something that I think people may be fearful of is like, if somebody else is going through a very traumatic process or very loud process, or a lot of grief is being expressed, how that affects then their experience of being able to surrender, as you said, Sarah. So how do you I don't want to say make sure that everyone has a good time,
Mhm.
or has the process that they need to have.
Yeah.
Because I could see it being something where you may even want to contribute to somebody else's process if you're seeing that they're grieving a lot and saying, hey,
Sure.
Mhm.
maybe I can hold their hand or something like that.
Yeah. So we definitely coach on this aspect. And there is a beauty by the time that everybody is in ceremony. They've known each other, a bit about each other. And the amount of compassion that comes out when we are present in witnessing somebody else's process. So, whether that be a woman sobbing heavily, a man really cleansing and purging. And in those moments, we're all conscious. And so we're curious maybe what they're going through. And sometimes our heart is with them. And so sometimes we also feel their pain, even if we don't know what it is. And we are cheering them on because we know that we are here for healing and expansion to let go of things forever. A lot of people, they believe that healing is a lifetime endeavor. I believe that there are certain traumas, not even believe, I know experientially and through hundreds of people that we can heal traumas. More pains will come up and we'll have more tools so that we don't go into suffering. But in ceremony space, if somebody next to me is going through a process and I can hear it, I send love and I send compassion. It can be part of my practice to go inwards. And sometimes I take that space and meditate on sharing love and compassion. And that's part of the ceremony. And then I know, and next it'll be silent and then it'll be for me, or I can focus on the music. We do go through tools on how to move through this.
And oftentimes you'll even find that whatever that other person is going through has a deep impact and meaning that you didn't even know you had. So there is something mysterious, I'd like to say, around that process. So it's beautiful how sometimes we don't believe in coincidence. Randomness does not exist. So when people are coming together, they're coming together for a reason. The supporting element is beautiful. We have our retreats are comprised of two main teams. We have the care team, which is in all aspects of taking care of the individuals outside of ceremony. And then we have the medicine team. And between these two teams, everyone is cradled and handled in loving arms and helped through their processes in that aspect. We are mindful of the space, of course. So if there's sometimes things that can be highly interruptive for the rest of the team, that we take proper actions to make sure that everyone is receiving the best experience that they can have.
And what that might look like is inviting somebody outside of the ceremony space into a bed set up in the grass so that they can feel confident to be loud, that they're not distracting, that they can fully go through a
And they're cared
process.
for individually
Super
there.
cared for and a very loving environment, a very strong and very loving environment.
Yeah, I know you have a lot of experience doing this. You've guided over 1,000 people, but close to 2,000 probably at this point through these ceremonies for over 10 years. What is the most common misconception? Like, what do people expect versus what they actually get that you've seen over these last 10 years?
Yeah, I think the main aspects of what we see is people are looking for a silver bullet. We live in a society of immediate gratification, and just people aren't realizing that sometimes it takes work. The more work you put into it, the better the outcome is going to be. So sometimes people feel that escaping to an experience like this and running away from maybe the toxicity that they're involved in the world will then help them alleviate that aspects. But if you're not realizing that you're going back into the same toxicity that you came from, then you're not necessarily integrating and involving yourself in a way that will construct to the better and highest version of yourself. So that aspect of automatic enlightenment or leaving as a guru or some sort is sometimes certain expectations of those things that take place.
I think another thing that everyone gets surprised by is what is their personal challenge. People have an idea of when I go, I'm going to have to face this event or time period or event that is causing a blockage. And so they only imagine what that experience might look like. And nobody is surprised that there will be a challenge. And I don't use anything like bad or negative. Climbing Mount Everest is a challenge. If you prepare, if you work out, if you eat well, if you do all the things, climbing Mount Everest is easier, but it's still going to be challenging. And so ayahuasca is similar. And so people come in thinking their challenge is going to be this thing. And then when it's something else, they don't recognize that's what they need to work on. And so they might spend an hour trying to look away from that. And so this is a simple example. Somebody could be in ceremony waiting for that experience that they're looking for, and then the insects are loud And they're like,
Mhm.
man, those insects are distracting. Or somebody's going through an experience next to them. I need them to stop. And they don't realize that their challenge in that moment is to reduce distraction in ceremony
Yes.
and in life. We need to learn how to focus better. And so they could miss that opportunity of working on that challenge.
Yeah.
Another brief thing that will come up is, say somebody is working with anxiety in their life, and then they go into ceremony and maybe they feel anxiety rising. Then they're going, oh no, not now. Don't ruin my ceremony. Please don't get anxious. And what happens? They get more anxious.
Yeah.
And so we coach on this. If that comes up, we go into a space of, thank you, ayahuasca, for working on my anxiety with me. I am here and I am present and I will face it.
Yeah. I think for us is guiding the people on their expectations. And, most people are going down the rabbit holes of the internet to find and search information around this thing. And it just takes them on these whirlwinds that don't necessarily provide them real information. So the expectations of a non-experience could take place. Most people don't realize that you
An
may just,
unknown
or an
experience.
unknown experience.
It's always working.
Right.
It's whether you consciously know about it.
Yeah. So those are aspects that I think people, in their expectations, they come with an expectation because it's hard not to, right?
Yeah.
But I think probably one of the incredible things that they actually get is what they least thought that they needed ends up surfacing for them. And that really is sometimes the crux of the matter in their lives. And that's where really they get to resolve that information. And yeah, that's beautiful.
And everybody is surprised. I've never heard a single person go, yes, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. Yeah. I could go,
Yeah.
yeah. And so athletes and high performers come for different reasons. We've had a lot of athletes come with different intentions. Some it is optimizing performance. And so somebody could look for more focus or discipline, and specifically even flow, to be in flow state every single day. I used to think in flow was for athletes and musicians, and I now know it's for all of us. And so some of the tools and techniques to be in flow. We also have athletes that are about to retire or retiring, and they have defined themselves as an athlete, and they're in a bit of a crisis. They have determined their value based on this thing that they're no longer going to be. And so we work on that transition. And then some come for healing. So athletes are in physical pain, sometimes treated with painkillers. And so ayahuasca is a medicine. It's a medicine to heal and to cleanse. Yeah.
We work with two verticals in our offerings, which is healing is one vertical and expansion. And people will often sign up for the expansive aspect of the retreat only to discover that there's a lot of healing that they had no idea that there, and vice versa. So it's a beautiful process. We love to see people finding their full recovery and their full healing and whatever that may be. And that's really the essence for us. I don't think people should be constantly on that path of constant healing. I think healing gets to a point where you're healed and that is done. And so we hope to achieve that. And for folks that do come back, they're coming for expansion. And that expansion can be quite infinite because you're traversing all the different realms that they could provide. But this is certainly a biohacking aspect for most, and athletes and high performers understand this ability of really having a cheat or a shortcut within psychedelics to reach that altered state of consciousness really quick, and then how can then I tap into that?
Hmm. 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 Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yes, I think for sure each person should do their own research. But now out there, that can be overwhelming. And so on that first call, one, there should be a call. If you can sign up and pay online, but that first call, do you feel heard? Did you learn something from this human being? Did it feel like getting into a program where you need to qualify and you need to qualify that program? And so all of your questions can be answered and you are also asked questions. Do they have you go through a medical process? Filling out an evaluation and then speaking with the medical team. If you're on medications, did they look at every single one to say you need to taper off this one's okay? These are all the things that will let you know that you are with a qualified onboarding and conscious organization. I also think for the comfort, I am for comfort and for going to the jungle. I know experientially, as well as with the hundreds of people that we work with, the safer that we feel, even physically as well as psychologically, the deeper we can go. And so the first time I did ayahuasca, I was in the middle of the jungle. If I had to walk off, I wouldn't know what direction. And so I didn't go deep because I had to be very aware of my surroundings. And so um, now that I have more experience with ayahuasca, I will go to the jungle and I have that trust and that confidence. But for people's first or second step, I would evaluate the physical safety that I'm going through and making sure that that's taken care of. And then if they talk about integration, a preparation, if they give you a recommended dieta and guest services to check in with you in integration, then you know it's somebody that really cares about you transforming your life.
And this is it's important, right? The level of vulnerability that people are placing themselves in is important. And unfortunately, I would say that there's more red flags that pop up after you've signed up because, some of these people could easily be seeing this, for instance, and changing their protocols and running things in that same fashion. And then it's having awareness of where you've landed. And so some red flags of where you've landed, we're highly protective on these things, but is making sure that, people aren't asking you for money, sending you to another retreat, signing you up on another retreat right there and then. Those are key aspects because people, their hearts are open, their minds are open, their spirit is open. And it's really, that's probably the biggest responsibility that Sarah and I have with every one of the humans that have crossed our doors is to make sure that they are protected. Because once the veil has been lifted and it's ripped it through the eyes, you're able to see out there. I think it's that care that needs to go across not only just during the retreat but even post retreat where they're ending up, and those are things that are important.
Mhm. Well, in a way, one thing I want to start with is that the ceremonies and workshops operate in different levels. And so the ceremonies, we remain traditional. We honor their lineage and their request not to have technology in the space. Sometimes people bring in their Fitbit. We don't, humans are sovereign individuals. And we make the request. And then during the daytime, we then work on some of these other tools and biohacking and processes and ideas. But we don't layer them together, at least not now. Maybe within our personal team.
I mean, I'm very much data driven.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's important. And one of the things that privileged position that we're in is the ability to have the continuity of our retreats that we're able to then fine tune and perfect it in such a way that it's carefully curated to perfection. But the data is also interesting and how we can improve upon it. But the technology here that we're using is the technologies of the medicines themselves.
Yep.
There's no greater technology. They've been around for thousands of years. They carry the wisdoms of the lineages of our past and our ancestors. And really, there's nothing more greater. It's been happening and working perfectly throughout the years. That we like to, we want to be avant-garde in certain areas, but also honoring and respecting the tradition in the best way we can.
And I love where science and this traditional wisdom start having parallels. And so there's something that science would say knowing with a K-N-O-W. I know this now because of data. And then a knowing like gnosis. You might see more in the jungle. And so in these ceremonies, they don't need to be validated by science, but they work. I also have a Western mind and I love the science. And I also can show it better when I know the importance of nervous system regulation. We're going to go through an intense ceremony. And maybe in the jungle, they don't know these things. And during the day, they say, take a walk. And we'll say, take a walk. And what else regulates your nervous system? And we'll have different tools and different systems. And so I love the science and the tradition coming together. And we honor the traditions and the lineage. And the science is just fascinating and incredible and really layers beautifully for lifelong changes quickly.
Yeah, I see you guys as just having just such a prime opportunity to do a lot of this scientific research that we actually like can't do in the lab because of all the regulation that's being done, like just all the regulation around it. And so I have a lot of curiosity on how much seeing that biofeedback can contribute to somebody's understanding of the experience, or maybe even openness to go deeper into an experience, because it's like, oh, my brain is firing like crazy. This makes sense now, what I'm experiencing, and then I can fall into it more. So there could be some opportunity there. And maybe it does start with your team internally first before taking it into a larger ceremony. But I like that you do keep with the traditions, and that in some of the traditions, technology shouldn't be a part of it. And I also think, taking clocks away, not having the Fitbit on so you don't go into this spiral where you're like, it's only been 2 minutes. I experienced a lifetime, because that can send some people into a weird thought process. But a lot of people are biohackers nowadays, and they sort of want to see this connection, or at least maybe see it afterwards, where it's like we start to quantitate and we start to see a little bit of that biofeedback, and also maybe even how the group dynamics work together as well. I can come up with so many questions.
I could see that. We'll do another podcast on that.
Because, there's such fascinating work being done, obviously, in the laboratory around PTSD, addiction, depression, things that they're in clinical trials now. We're seeing positive results, but things aren't approved yet. And so a lot of people are turning to, I don't want to say the black market exactly, because it is legal in certain regions, but they're turning to alternative methods because you can't access this through the traditional healthcare system yet.
They travel for it.
Yeah, they travel for it so they can get these experiences. Do you see that? Could it be possible that we could leverage the evidence that's being generated at these retreats in order to accelerate the regulatory status in different types of regions, rather than waiting for these clinical trials for like one specific diagnosis to shift, because this takes so long?
I would to mention around that, I'm always overly cautious when pharma or the industry is trying to figure out how to monetize this. So essentially, things have been working great for thousands of years, but, we're going to do what traditionally pharma does, which will find a medicine from nature, from the jungle, and then synthesize it, process it, and then repackage it and give it to you into a pill, let's say. So I caution sometimes a little bit of that. I think that there is an evolution and advancement. I'm nerdy a little bit when it comes to these things. I like to know how things work, why they work physiologically in the work, what's taking place and how it's happening. And there's some things that just still remain mysterious. With the amount of years that I've been doing this, there's just certain things that are still a mystery that we have not yet unraveled. Yet the results are there and they're unequivocal. We see them physically, and for us, it's incredible to witness even the humans that are coming onto us on the retreat. On their first day of retreat, we sense their energy immediately. Their cells are vibrating at this level when they come in, but by the time they leave, their cells are vibrating at this level. And their micro muscles and their facial expressions are changed. So you could take a picture of that person before and after, and you're going to recognize a different individual from that. And that most people get that, wow, you look different. There's something special or different about you after. And that's those micro muscles that are now relaxed in their face. And you're processing. So these are things that have shown to demonstrate what this can really do.
And I agree with you on the aspect of what you said about pharmaceuticals. And there's also healing. And I think we can follow psilocybin as really more progressive and able to measure that in clinical setting than ayahuasca. And we're seeing now the benefits, and then the systems change. And so I'm very excited about that. There will need to be strong voices that hold the line of tradition and lineage. And so that's where I think there's no competition in our world. If you're doing good work, we are allies. And so as allies, we need to come together and say, this is the voice of, and especially with the shamans and the medicine men and women, because we need to remember when we look at medicine, there's Western medicine, which is incredible at trauma and surgeries. And there's Eastern medicine. They look at holistic. Ayahuasca is neither. It's not Western, it's not Eastern. And so we're asking Western questions for something that is a different type of medicine. And so it's not going to resonate with people when you start talking about spirit and energy and vibration. There's things that I didn't believe 5 years ago that I believe now. And there's also things that I'm hearing now that I go, I don't quite understand that yet. And maybe I never will. And so when people are trying to look for Western solutions and put in a different type of medicine, I think there needs to be a council of humans to work together and collaborate to hold that space.
So I have a couple rapid fire questions for you guys. So we'll
Yeah.
try and answer them as quickly as we can, but let's see. Okay, so between ayahuasca, psilocybin, and Bufo, if you could only guide someone through just one of them, which one would you choose and why?
I would say ayahuasca, without a doubt. It's the therapeutic medicine. It's the one that really goes deep in many layers. So that's the one to go to, in my opinion.
Sarah, do you agree?
Same. Yep. Ayahuasca is an incredible medicine, and it holds you. It shows you the truth, which can be hard, and then it also holds you. Psilocybin can be that mirror, and then it'll say, have fun. So I feel there's a more therapeutical aspect to ayahuasca. Yeah, same.
What is the biggest myth about plant medicine that you just want to bury?
I would say the biggest myth is that this is the quick fix and the silver bullet. That's the biggest myth here. I mean, you have to put in the work. The work doesn't come in taking place within the retreat itself. It takes place after you leave.
Yeah.
That's why we have a 7-week program that it's carefully put together to give people 3 weeks of prior coaching, preparation, and readiness for that. And then 1 week boots on the ground, work on the retreat, and then 3 weeks of post-somatic integration work that takes place. That in and of itself allows people to, ultimately receive the most that they can within the medicine.
What's the most unexpected type of person who has been transformed by one of your retreats at Behold?
We've had a priest come, which is really incredible and beautiful. Yeah. And we've had people in different faiths, like the Mormon faith. My personal favorite is when governmental officials come. We've had the experience where they're ready to go back and make change, and we've had an experience where they're ready to quit. We're like, no, you need to go back into these systems and create beautiful changes. And so we've had people in pharmacy, we've had a lot of nurses. So that's what I love the most, is people that all of a sudden start questioning. That's my favorite thing about the work that we do, is it gets us to start questioning things.
And over the years, we've been receiving people from all walks of life. That's probably the most beautiful aspect that we get to see, is the people are coming from all the different walks. And I think everyone has benefit, no matter where you're coming from and what your needs are, or even just to really understand that there's something greater and bigger in life than just what we're witnessing here and now.
What's one thing you wish that the wellness biohacking community would borrow from the indigenous traditions?
Community.
I think community is where it lies. And most people, when they come to our retreats, they have a sense of fulfillment. They realize a sense of unity within the people that have come together, the bondness that comes in when people come together. It's incredible. It's a very lifelong, permanent friendship that then is created there. And thus lies the aspect of community. So we encourage community, we work with community, we allow for people to be a part of monthly integration calls that they can join whenever they want. So it's something that we encourage people in the community aspect, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I really love that, because I preach this a lot to my clients, my friends, my family, the importance of community when it comes to longevity. When it comes, it's the core of everything. And if you can experience new ways to build community or find people that you can connect with through a peak experience, this is something I think everyone should be putting a lot more time and effort into building. So I definitely agree with you on that one.
The retreat
Um,
attendees are friends for life.
I believe that because you definitely have you shared a common experience and
Mhm.
you saw people go through their process as well, which is like very vulnerable and that lifelong friendship compacted into, a couple hours or a couple days. And then you leave with wanting that person in your life forever. It's really beautiful.
And I also would love for the masters to know that strength and love is still strong. I mentioned earlier I was raised to be very independent. I didn't learn until I was 38 what interdependence meant. I chose a life of being independent, standing on my own, and I could do a lot. And it wasn't until I started on this path that I go, we can do so much more when we're
Yeah.
together and we're building together.
Oh, that's so beautiful because I think there are so many people that statement can resonate with
Yeah.
because in this capitalist society where it's sort of everyone out for themselves, we forget that actually if we do things in community, we're so much more powerful. We can go so much further. We can do so much more, have a bigger
Yeah.
impact. So I love that you're reminding people of that through your work. For someone that's listening to the podcast right now who's curious but scared, maybe they've been told their whole life through programs like DARE to stay away from drugs or that it's dangerous. Maybe they also are afraid to trust their own mind and let go. What would you say to them?
I have a very direct experience with this. I mentioned that I started psychedelics young. Somebody once said that there is this fungi that you can eat and everything looks like a rainbow. And I go, that sounds amazing. I will do that. And then it was actually that program. There's a keep your kids off drugs. And I thought, oh, my brain is developing. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And then what's interesting is drinking, especially in college, is perfectly acceptable. And so I stopped the psychedelics and I went into networking, which networking means socializing and all of those things. And so I would look at when you're thinking about medicines or drugs or recreational drugs is the intention. There are medicines out there that could be redefined as drugs if you look at are they addictive? Are they short term and are they addictive? So maybe we could switch our language about what is a drug, what is a short term medicine, what is a recreational drug, and even recreational drugs can be transcendent. People that have taken psilocybin at festivals have had soft and medium awakenings that have transitioned the way that they show up in the world, the way that they treat other women, for example, women to women, saying, let's raise each other up. We're not in competition. And so that's where I think somebody could start looking at is what are the intentions of these medicines, drugs, recreational drugs? Are
Sometimes
they to heal?
people that are could be on the fence is it all depends on the level of programming that they have, right? And it's we've had our oldest guest was
88.
8 years
Oh,
old to give you
wow.
an idea, and the older you are, the more programming that there is, right? The more
Yeah.
things that you have to unravel.
Mhm.
I know I introduced my son into the medicine when he was 19, so I think these are areas where people can step into, and if they're on the fence, sometimes religion is a strong programming that kind of
Mhm.
puts fear in the aspects of them coming into these things. So it all depends on that level of programming for each one.
If people are curious about taking the first step into psychedelics or maybe joining a retreat, where can they find you? Where can they follow your work?
Joining our website, yeah,
Behold-retreats.com.
retreat.com, and just do a search and you'll find us. And then I think that will be there's a readiness quiz test that's there. I think it's very important to fill that out and begin the path. And then soon after, you'll have a discovery call and meet one of our gatekeepers or guardians that'll be there. So that's definitely a first step if anyone's feeling called for healing or expansion.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been super fun.
That's so good. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Really
Yeah, thank you so
enjoyable
much.
podcast today. Thank you so much.